So I've identified a need in a professional uniform service to conduct high visibility reassurance patrols within our parish, including our parks and open spaces. The aim of this proposal is to address this gap by presenting the utilisation of current legislation available to local authorities, including parish councils. And I will present working models of good practice utilised in other areas of the country, including examples where local authorities have appointed their own constables to carry out highly visible patrol functions. This proposal is achievable utilising current legislation with expenses comparable to that of warden schemes used nationally. Just a bit of an overview. Sheffield is one of the greenest cities within Europe and England. What really got me interested in this subject is in regards to how the public view crime and how crime and antisocial behaviour has a huge impact on us. There is a huge fear of crime out there, and sadly, due to resourcing issues and priorities being directed largely to a more response model, what we would see as local response and beat policing, I think we can all agree has largely dissipated across our communities, not just in Sheffield, but nationally. People like to see bobbies on the beat with the big hats on, patrolling, carrying out highly visible patrols. I managed to obtain some information from South Yorkshire Police, some statistics in regards to criminal offending within Ecclesfield parish parks. These are some of the larger parks within the parish, so they include Chapeltown, Ecclesfield, and Grenoside. As you can see, I'm not going to list them all, but there's some fairly serious offences that occurred between 2015 and 2017. Sexual offences, racial-related crime and assaults, alongside theft and criminal damage. With these offences as well, there's other matters which impact on our parks and our community, including acts of fly tipping and unlawful use of off-road vehicles. And that's something that I've personally witnessed, off-road bikes being driven up and down common land and within the community. In relation to fly tipping, Sheffield's one of the sort of worst cities in the UK that's been impacted by a recent study suggesting we're the 5th worst affected local authority area. So it is a big issue. In my opinion, there's clearly a need for a bespoke uniform service to carry out patrols in an effort to prevent and deter crime, disorder and antisocial behaviour. Such a service will be directly managed and accountable to the parish council and should be able to respond directly to parishioner concerns when and where needed. I believe remit of such officers should include the ability to support South Yorkshire Police within their local policing priorities, to be able to work hand in hand with other external agencies such as probation service or even the Yorkshire Ambulance Service, assist in the search of vulnerable persons, which include children and vulnerable adults, and actively engage in crime prevention by linking in with Friends of groups and neighbourhood watch committees in support of public safety and crime prevention. Also provide a first aid resilience within the community. We do have access to public defibrillators, which are located across the parish. And I always believe that somebody in a uniform who's representing a public authority, such as a local authority, their officers should be trained in the use of first aid and the use of those public defibrillators as a life-saving measure as and when required. Utilising legislation which is already available to local authorities, yourselves within parish councils and city councils, they have access to quite wide-ranging powers to issue their wardens, issue fixed penalty notices for quality of life issues such as littering, fly tipping, support of bylaw legislation which the local parks and open spaces do have in place within Sheffield, quite extensive bylaws which cover everything from groups of nuisance use gathering to low-level criminal damage and other types of offending behaviour. Wardens in other areas support policing via supporting prosecutions of criminal offences, providing witness statements, also provide evidence towards criminal behaviour orders for persistent offenders, and also assist with community protection notices, CPNs, which I've had some experience with in Barnsley, who've just enacted a CPN for that area. Additionally, there are powers in law for wardens to take action against off-road and antisocial vehicle use. So again, 4x4 vehicles being driven in an antisocial manner. Just covering what we could have. We could have something akin to a neighbourhood warden scheme. Various authorities have something in place of this nature. There is some drawbacks to community wardens, which I will cover. At the moment, it's my understanding and my research that Ecclesfield parish doesn't have any such uniform warden scheme in place. Under the Crime and Disorder Act of 1998, there is a legal responsibility and a duty for local authorities to try and deter and disrupt crime and support police in action in the best way they can within our local communities. And again, just going on to what I said previously, local community wardens can be designated various powers and fixed penalty notices, etc., to help tackle a wide range of issues, including, again, off-road vehicle use, graffiti, fly tipping, and other impactful sort of antisocial behaviour crime, which does impact quite widely in our communities. Closer to home, Sheffield City Council employs city centre ambassadors. We've probably all seen them out in the city centre. They wear the red high-vis jackets. I work quite closely with them. We've done a lot of work together in regards to preventing crime and disorder within the city centre. They support the council's resilience in regards to major events such as snooker championships at the Crucible, the Sheffield Half Marathon and the Tour de Yorkshire. Their primary focus, however, is to be a reassurance role to the public, and they have little enforcement powers allocated to them. Alongside this, they are fully first aid and defibrillator trained and have responded and issued life-saving first aid to people who have become ill or collapsed within the city centre. Again, speaking from my own involvement with them, they have assisted in criminal behaviour orders being issued against persistent nuisance offenders, such as aggressive vagrancy and that sort of thing. Now, just moving on to the constabulary element of it. Across Britain, there's various, what I would term, or what the law terms as bodies of constables that function outside the regular police model. These include Ports Police and even Cathedral Minster Police, which still exist in the UK. Local authorities have legislation still in place, which can be used to appoint their own constables in law. Namely, Section 77 of the Public Health Amendment Act 1907, which was extended by Section 52 of the Public Health Act 1961. I'm not going to read it out to you, but it gives you, it gives a local authority the ability to appoint their own officers via a magistrate, swear them in under oath as a constable to enforce open space and bylaw legislation within their area, their council area. This legislation has been used in London, and it has been used for decades within London. There's numerous of these constabularies in existence, which include Wandsworth Parks and Events Police, Hammersmith and Fulham Parks Police, Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea Parks Police, Havering and Hampstead Heath Constabulary. Uniquely, Parks constables are employees of the local authorities and not that of the Metropolitan Police Service or the Mayor of London. So the officers fall under the direct control of the parish constables themselves, of the parish or the borough leaders. This is quite unique in law. They're attested officers. They can make arrests in regards to open space legislation. And this is the primary, I would say, benefit of them over wardens. A constable in law can approach a situation. It could be something minor in nature. They can deal with it without calling on assistance from the local police. It's something they can sort out themselves. A warden, on the other hand, has no power of detention and no real power to gain somebody's name and address details. This is if they wanted to issue a fine or deal with somebody for a bylaw matter or whatever it may be they've been designated to deal with. They would often have to call up the regular police to come out and assist them. And as we all know, at the moment, the Home Office police forces and constabularies simply haven't got the people power to often allocate those calls, which means a lot of these incidents, a lot of these people walk away, get away with committing antisocial behaviour. Just some pictures of these officers in action. So we've got the ones with Parks Police, top left. Interestingly, Havering Parks Police, they operate their own off-road bike team to help tackle nuisance off-road 4x4 use within their open spaces and parks. So again, attested parks constables have sworn an oath to a magistrate and have numerous benefits over general wardens. So they have the ability to carry out and enforce bylaw and open space legislation. They have protections which are afforded to constables within law. So again, we all know it's an offence to assault a police constable or obstruct a police constable in the execution of their duty. Those same powers apply to these officers as they are attested. They have the ability to make arrests if a suspect refuses name and address details for bylaw or open space offences. And that falls under Code G of the necessity test, which is basically forms part of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, which is effectively the Bible of modern day policing within the UK. As seen with other forms of wardens and appointed constables, they're more able to carry out their duties, again, without relying on suspect support or regular police response. And this will not only maintain public trust, but establish a real faith in the role, which I think is lacking with certain wardens and other, what I would consider lower tier levels of enforcement officer. A parks constable would act as a professional witness for offences seen outside of open spaces and parks, and where necessary, intervene more readily, utilising any personal arrest powers for serious offences. Because they're trained to make arrests, they're trained as professional witnesses, they can be more readily step in and step up when more serious incidents occur in front of them. There's numerous examples within London where parks constables have come across robberies and serious offences where they've stepped in and maintained that public trust and put a stop to the situation before it got any worse. And again, the evidence can be used to bolster criminal behaviour orders at CBOs. Alongside their constabulary powers, they can still be designated the powers of a warden because they're employees of a local authority. So they can still be designated with all the fly tipping, littering legislation. And that's how they operate in London. Alongside their attested constable powers, they have the general warden powers issued to them as well. Interestingly enough, local authority constables in London have been designated as civil emergency responders to aid in civic emergencies in times of crisis or a major incident. Clearly, at this moment in time, we're going through the coronavirus pandemic. There's been significant work with the local authority officers in London assisting in ensuring people adhere to the coronavirus legislation. But they've also attended incidents of civil unrest and, in the case of Kensington and Chelsea, assisted significantly at the Grenfell Tower disaster. Again, if this was to be implemented, there has to be a complementary approach with South Yorkshire Police. In London, the Parks Constables share a memorandum of understanding with the Metropolitan Police, meaning that any arrests which are made are the responsibility of the Metropolitan Police if somebody has to be taken to custody. Criminal offences within public parks remain the responsibility of the local police. They don't get handed over to the Parks Constabulary. They're there purely to deal with low-level antisocial behaviour issues. And again, any joint operations which takes place between the Metropolitan Police or the Parks officers is under the direct control of the Metropolitan Police. Infrastructure, again, speaking with these bodies in London, they act very much as a currently existing warden scheme. So all they have in place is a secure office for safe storage of information, uniform and equipment. They have access to an official email system with liaison with their council prosecution team if they're carrying out any enforcement purposes. They do have access to liveried vehicles for both visibility and access to patrol locations. In my opinion, any such liveried vehicle would have to be marked up distinctly different from that of a police vehicle, obviously. Same goes for uniform. It has to be distinct and identify them clearly as a local authority constable. Personal protective equipment. These officers are sworn in via magistrate. They do have powers in law to make arrests. All of the Parks Constables in London have been issued with stab vests, handcuffs, and even batons to carry out these duties. It's not a requirement for them to undertake their role, but that is something that they are issued with. And again, if they are going to be trained up in use of these sort of powers, there has to be yearly approved refresher training and use of open hand defence training alongside any other equipment they may be using. Costs. So Parks Constables are not paid in line with regular police officers. Their wages are comparable to that of a warden role with local authorities. York Minster Police and Mersey Tunnel Police, it's about £23,000 a year, which is actually significantly more than what a probationer PC gets currently with the Home Office and BTP. A freedom of information request via Wandsworth Parks Police revealed that the cost of uniform and equipment for each officer was approximately £1,777. An effective service would require the establishment of 5 officers, including a supervisor, with recruitment aimed at retired police officers or those with prior policing experience. And Minster Police in York attend special constable training courses put in place by North Yorkshire Police. And services could also utilise a reserve constable model, which Wandsworth Police do use, with volunteers assisting with back office functions. As for funding, there's various avenues you could go down. Police and crime commissions have access to funds to help reduce violent crime within their communities, including costs for council community warden schemes, national lottery community funding, and local business support and sponsorship. Something I haven't included in this is the government announcement of 60 million to local authorities in regards to the coronavirus response. I didn't have time to thoroughly research that, but the Police and Crime Commissioner funding for South Yorkshire Police at the moment for local authorities and warden schemes is approximately 1.6 million, and that's just for South Yorkshire Police and Crime Commissioner. So additional means of funding any future scheme could be also utilising a tri-parish council partnership between Ecclesfield, Stocksbridge and Bradfield town and parish local authorities to spread the costs of such a scheme. That has happened in London, where 2 borough councils put into a pot to fund officers within their parks and open spaces. In conclusion, crime and the fear of crime remains to be an issue nationally. A highly visible patrol service would assist in both deterring crime and antisocial behaviour, whilst also supporting local policing efforts. Parks constables could serve their community professionally with both appointed powers of a constable and designated powers of a local authority warden. A joint working approach with local police would ensure a professional relationship with both intelligence sharing and complementary approach to solving community issues. That's really important. There has to be a memorandum of understanding between South Yorkshire Police and any warden service which may come into play. And such a role would establish confidence and trust within the community, providing a visible, uniformed and actual deterrent to crime and disorder. And costs of parks constables, including salary and infrastructure, remain similar to that of other local authority wardens. And in my opinion, is much more cost effective. Just in regards to the research I've conducted in relation to this, numerous park sergeants and inspectors I've spoken to in London, including ones with Parks Police Inspector Steve Biggs, Park Sergeant Christopher Ellison, and Chief Officer Joseph Hobson, who runs the Cathedral Constables Association. All of these individuals are quite happy to answer any questions. They're currently serving now, and they work very hard to help deter crime and disorder within their boroughs.